Teleost. Teleost grasped forearms with Basil in greeting when they saw one another on the morning the crusade was to part from Athlia. The soldiers from the 5 regional armies had gathered in anticipation of the horn announcing muster. "You did it!" Basil exclaimed. "Of course. All of us are practically healing mage apprentices after listening to you on the road for so long. Yarrow tested me on a couple occasions, one time by speaking the holy language. But you know how good I am at tests. I not only replied with one of the phrases you taught us, but I also explained to him how his word order was screwed up." Teleost beamed with pride.
"It was incredible,"
Time said.
"That wasn't the only impressive part. We also got to see Imperial soldiers in their silver armor," Crusade said. "We had a great time exploring the castle, too. As unnerving as it is, it was fun to run around during the day. The bazaar was massive. There were wares and merchants from every kingdom. Everything from Ferdinand spell tomes to Sovani stained glass to Hogenson silk and Ikazuish fruits and Veterinese limestone sculptures."
"Aside from the ordeal with Yarrow, everything was fine. You guys were overreacting staying away from Athlia," Teleost said. "Even going down to the mines to say farewell to your enslaved friend was fine. I never felt weird about sneaking around. Workers swarmed the place. It was easy to blend in." "You not feeling guilty for sneaking around says more about you than it does about the safety of Athlia," Anates countered. Teleost ignored her comment. "It was nice to get an opportunity to enjoy the high life for once, as I'm the one that's always shunned outside the castle unless I'm preparing supplies. I got to see the High King, the innermost sections of the impenetrable castle, and Ether in the same day. How many can say they've done the same?" "I can't," Basil said with slight envy in his voice. "But I'm glad you got the chance to. I made good progress toward finishing my master's spell tome." "I'll describe the castle in detail," Teleost said, "so you can decide for yourself if you want to see it after the crusade, once you work out whatever your master won't tell you."
"Wouldn't that be insulting?" Bruce had asked.
Basil shrugged. "I would appreciate it. I want to know what it's like." Interrupting, Celestine bounded excitedly over to Basil. "It has been an eternity." She wrapped her arms around him, and he hugged her back tightly. Anates rolled her eyes and shook her head, but Teleost was uncertain why. "I have missed you so much," Celestine said. "I've missed you too," Basil whispered. Celestine broke out of the embrace, and she turned to the rest of the group. "It is good to see all of you too." "The pleasure's ours, Princess," Teleost said. She nodded graciously. "You were sitting in on planning meetings with Panite, right? How did they go?" Time asked. "Wonderfully. They're planning on integrating the Khazarish regional army in before we set out for today."
"I hope they insert a line of Khazarish soldiers between us and the Gian line," Crusade grumbled. "We didn't luck out when the Devorian forces joined us, so maybe we will this time." "I miss our original line formation," Teleost said. "That's because you were screwing all 3 of the soldiers in front of us." Celestine's eyes widened at the crass language. "I don't see your point," Teleost said. Crusade laughed heartily. "You would have liked the Gian soldiers better if they had wanted to swordplay." "Okay, sure, you're not wrong." Teleost joked along, but he liked the other Veterinese soldiers for their characters. They included him and had been nice to him. They were passionate and understood him in a way that Basil or Crusade wouldn't have. "I should visit them again soon. It's been too long." "I liked listening in on the conversations of the Ikazuish soldiers better than any of the other ones we've marched behind," Crusade said. "The Gian soldiers are vile." Teleost knew what Crusade meant. The Gian men had enthusiastically described their cruel actions to the courtesans when they paid for their services and when they hadn't. A part of Teleost hoped that Anates would take it upon herself to rid the Crusade of the unwanted line of deplorables. Bitterly, he knew that if she were caught murdering rapists again, it would likely become a bigger problem for her. D4 would have to justify to 4 other major generals why she shouldn't be charged with treason against the realm. Still, Teleost found it disgusting that the Gian soldiers perverted sexual activity with unwanted brutality. When the muster horn blew, Anates tugged on Crusade's hand. "Time to find who will get next." The massively long line formed along the merchant road, with the force of 5 armies standing in rows of 3. When a line of Khazarish privates inserted themselves behind the Gian line, Teleost, Anates, and Crusade exchanged pleased glances between themselves.
Once everything was settled, Basil, Thyme, and Celestine rejoined them on the back lines, and the merchant caravan nearly tripled in size with the other merchants who intended to use the crusade for safe travel into the northern lands. In addition to the new merchants, the high combative mage and a real weather mage are traveling with us, Celestine said. Basil asked immediately, Teleost, did you meet Master Plume when you were in Athlia? Not that I remember. Why? I saw her in the woods, and I'm concerned she'd recognize that we aren't the same person. Wouldn't that be true for any of the Khazarish soldiers? It would not come as a surprise if she remembered my face. Anastace turned around to ask with a mischievous smile, Are you going to tell them what you told me earlier? If Teleost had to guess, she was excited about being privy to the knowledge before anyone else. Right, I met Dantrima, Basil said quietly. Teleost and the others turned to look at him, astonished. Celestine gasped. Basil summarized the religious discussion he'd had with the priest and the archdemon. I don't believe this. How is it I finally get a chance to have the best experience out of anyone, and yet Basil gets it anyway while being exiled to the forest? Teleost demanded irately. Even if our positions were switched, that wouldn't have happened to me. Brusite laid a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder.
Yeah, you wouldn't have made it out of bed.
Fuck off, Teleost said flatly. This life is not a competition, Teleost, Celestine said gently. You had a magnificent time in the castle. Cherish it as such. Basil had a different experience. Let him cherish it too. Teleost resented Celestine's lecture, but didn't have a chance to respond. Just one time, I wanted to have the best time. Just once. This was my chance. I won't have another break before we've reached the Reiseglai. But the rest of them will get to enjoy every city we stop at without me. I don't know why I don't expect this by now. Among the nobles and the mages, the lowly fisherman's son will always get the worst outlook every time. As Teleost sulked, the others turned toward the sound of D1 addressing the crusade. Teleost couldn't distinctly hear what D1 was saying, but it sounded as though she were providing new instructions and guidelines for the way ahead. Still, none of them could distinctly hear the words. If they were important, Teleost knew Basil would relay the information from Master Watercress, or the princess would find out and tell them. After the horn blew again, they continued discussing their respective adventures. Teleost told Basil, Your master is incredibly kind. He provided everything for me in time while we were at the castle. I'm sure he had to have gone through a whole pouch full of diamonds. I'll tell him that you appreciated his generosity, Basil said. He's the strangest person I've ever met. He takes the greatest pleasure in the simplest trifles. He explained to Thyme and me how the lanterns burn blue flames. The alchemy of it all was far beyond my understanding, but he spoke as avidly as though he had never seen anything so exquisite. He does that, Basil said. He used to love the heliotrope forest and the ruins in the lily pad lake. I can see that. He dragged us around to the castle's greenhouse and showed us a bunch of plants, pointing out which were edible and which to avoid. In the middle of it, I forgot who I was with, and I accidentally called him Basil. He did. It was funny, Thyme confirmed. I do that too? Basil asked, perplexed. Not as forthrightly, but when you are teaching, you speak with passion about the subject, Teleost said.
You do, Brusite said. Even when I'm not trying to pay attention to your lessons, I feel compelled to at least listen because of the way you talk. Like the knowledge is precious to you.
When Watercress treated me for my concussion, I picked up on that too, Anate said.
After he treated me for poisoning, he wouldn't stop explaining the magical genetic editing techniques he used to force my cells to make enzymes in the presence of the poison's proteins. I can still recall that.
Please don't, Teleost said, speaking for everyone. A couple of them chuckled. You're lucky to have him as your master, Teleost said. I know I am, Basil said. It's odd that each of you has spent time with him. He didn't interact much with my friends before.
Perhaps we're more prone to getting ourselves into trouble than your other friends.
That's true. Basil was non-apologetic. I take offense at that, Teleost said, feigning hurt. I'm the least disruptive one here.
You think that, do you?
Certainly. I've never had a queen need to decide my fate publicly, or gotten into skirmishes with the higher-ranking superiors, or killed fellow soldiers, or raised an alarm of an entire kingdom because I was getting kidnapped or wandered off into the forest and everyone was looking for me. I'm feeling unwarranted judgment emanating from your direction, Anate said. I haven't done any of those things either, Basil said, and I've never lied to the High King's face about who I am. Only because my friend asked me to do it. Besides, by not presenting yourself, you withheld information from the High King. That can be a form of lying.
There are justifications for those other actions too, Crusade said. You were just as disruptive as the rest of us, friend.
Such a title is an honor for me, Basil said. Teleost supposed the same was true for him as well. We're all in great company. After less than a half-day march, the crusade broke early for the midday meal on Coserai's northern border with Devor. A large river separated the two kingdoms, and before the crusade was to cross the bridge and enter into the barren Devorian climate once more, instruction passed down that everyone was to get their fill of water before they continued on again through the dry climate. Even with the addition of the weather mage, the master could not create a source of water from thin air. He could only purify the air and maintain a stable temperature. So, they would make the most of the water while they had it, and it was a welcome instruction. When the crusade stopped, Teleost had to help fill the barrels with river water and load them into oxen carts. It was heavy work, but went quickly. By the time he finished, the fire starters had boiled cauldrons of water to make it safe for everyone to drink. Unfortunately, the white dogwood forest backed up to the river. Between the cover of the trees and the concealment from the underbrush, it was difficult for Teleost to search for his friends. With the 10,000 troops scrunched together between the foliage, it was also challenging to move through the crowd. Strangers faced Teleost at every turn. Impatient hunger led him to settle around a fire with strangers. The pot of drinking water was still cooling, but the food was far enough along to consume. Teleost thanked the chef when he handed him a good cut of cooked bass on a skewer. Did this freshwater roundfish come from the river, or had it come from the supplies at Athlia? For the sake of not offending the chef, Teleost refrained from asking. As Teleost stood to search for the others, another soldier, with a long beard and bright crimson ribbons on his armor's chestplate, came around. I must inspect the water, the Khazarish soldier said, and ensure that everyone has had some to drink. The water is cool enough to serve, the culinary specialist replied. Teleost grumbled because he intended to leave, but impatiently waited as the soldier began his inspection. Teleost assumed the rate of water inspector was some bullshit offshoot of the management and administration rate that had stemmed from Coserai's long-standing peace. Even though Vetron and the rest of the kingdoms have shared in the same tranquil rotations, we haven't relaxed on training our rates. Teleost doubted a water inspector could be useful on the march. What skills or qualifications does a rate like that even possess? He better not be a higher rank than me. Another soldier blocked Teleost's view of the man's rank ribbon, so Teleost's unspoken question went unanswered. This cauldron's been cleared. You may serve them now, the water inspector said, diligently watching as each person drank their fill. The other fires had similar soldiers barking the same instructions. Between a feeling of peer pressure and a desire not to make a fuss over something trivial, Teleost accepted the cup that the chef provided him. He drank it in one quick gulp, opening his throat to make it go down quicker. Once Teleost finished, he received the go-ahead to leave and seek out his other friends. He expected to find them closer to the back of the lines where they usually marched. However, he soon came across Crusade, who was seated among another group of unfamiliar soldiers. Teleost, Crusade greeted. Nice to see a friendly face. Teleost leaned into a whisper. Agreed. I don't particularly like the changes they've implemented. Have you eaten? Yes. I'm waiting on the water now, Crusade said. I already had some. If I didn't know better, I'd say that they're increasing marching efficiency by combining all of our plumbing breaks together. Perhaps that is part of D1's vision. Have you seen Basil during his break? Do you know if he's spoken to Watercress about the new rules and regulations yet? Crusade asked. I haven't seen him. We should look for him once you're allowed to leave. I agree. I'm surprised that Annotates isn't with you,
She's gone off for one last hunt in the forest before we enter back into Devor.
I don't blame her.
Teleost said, looking to the pieces of red sky barely visible through the leaves across the other side of the river. As Brusite accepted his cup and drank its contents eagerly, Teleost's stomach grumbled at him. He shifted to calm down the unpleasant sensation, but it didn't help. He stood. The feeling retreated. Brusite finished his portion of water. Let's go find the others. They wove through groupings of bronze and gold armored soldiers until they discovered Time, practicing his knife throwing alone amongst the dogwoods.
Hi, Time. Do you know where Basil got off to? Teleost asked when another wave of pain seared his digestive tract.
He went off to collect any herbs he could find. We won't get a chance to obtain free, fresh herbs for a while otherwise.
There are a lot of late preparations. Teleost clasped a hand to his head.
Are you doing all right? Brusite asked.
I'm not feeling great. My stomach hurts and I'm dizzy. Might have been the bass if it wasn't stored properly.
Time looked at him, concerned.
I think the cure for stomachache is ginger, but we should check with Basil to be sure.
Ginger and peppermint.
But Teleost struggled to articulate himself. He worried if he opened his mouth, he might vomit.
I might not be able to keep the herbs down, though. I might need a spell of heat instead.
Teleost, you should sit down, Brusite urged. I'll bring Basil over once I find him.
No, I can keep looking for him.
Even as Teleost dared to say the words, another wave of nauseous pain overcame his body. A couple of others from a nearby fire grasped their heads and stomachs as he did. Basil's going to have his work cut out for him. Something's making the whole camp sick, Brusite said.
Perhaps there was something wrong with the river?
Time returned Brusite's throwing knives to him and looked Teleost over. Teleost didn't want to upset the kid, but he felt like he was about to lose everything he just ate, and thus had more of a dismissive tone than he intended.
I don't know, Time.
Another unfamiliar soldier approached them. He was an older man, with a massive frame and a long gash along the side of his face, just a hair width away from his eye. Have you had water to drink?
By Mlau's horns, the Khazarish water inspecting soldiers are so irritating. Yes, Teleost said. You all are doing a shit job inspecting the water, you know that? It made me and half the camp ill.
Brusite placed a cautionary hand on Teleost's forearm. My friend has had a long day. I'm going to get him to the healing mage's apprentice straight away. Teleost glared at Brusite, but couldn't do much in the way of arguing. His stomach was ablaze with pain. A foggy yet excruciating pressure clouded his mind. His throat tightened, and his heart beat strangely. Brusite led the three of them away from the most recent water inspector. Teleost, there's a problem.
What?
He snapped impatiently. That soldier was wearing the ribbons for the rank of M8 of Vetron.
So?
M8 was the soldier that the Vahantri murdered in Safai. They stole his head, helmeted and all. I saw the body with my own eyes and reported it to D4 myself. That soldier back there was wearing his armor, Brusite said. Agony ate away at Teleost's muscles, making it difficult for him to keep up with Brusite when his friend quickened his pace. Teleost would care about Brusite's observations later, but for now he had to focus on ignoring his body's anguish. It wouldn't have been nearly as arduous to move forward if there hadn't been so many people clogging their path. Are you certain you other two have also drunk the water? The man posing as M8 asked. He had followed them from Time's knife-throwing spot without Teleost noticing. Groans erupted from the direction they had come. Brusite unsheathed his longsword. Even though the twisting motion hurt his abdominal muscles, Teleost did the same. I have drunk the liquid, and no one else from our group will be. Brusite's voice was firm. If he is a healing mage's apprentice that the crusade contracted, then it is the prerogative of the High King that he drinks his fill. Wouldn't want to risk anyone dying of dehydration in Devor. Time cowered behind Brusite and Teleost. I told you we already did. Brusite turned and took off running through the crowd with Time in tow. As best he could, Teleost struggled to follow them. His condition grew worse with each step. People retched and collapsed all around them. Brusite, Tome, and Teleost had to avoid writhing and fallen bodies strewn across the entirety of the campsite. "Faster, Teleost!" Brusite called furiously.
"I can't," Teleost heaved. "Come back once you find Basil."
Screams erupted. Before another moment passed, Teleost realized that the crusade was under attack, and he would fall to the same fate as the others around them. "A little farther, we'll be out of the camp," Brusite said. "You have to keep going."
"We have to get you to Basil,"
Tome cried out in panic. Through a scream of pain, Teleost propelled himself forward once more. Every part of his body failed him. His muscles burned and weren't responding the way they were supposed to. "You all ought to drink more." The fake M8 unsheathed his blade behind Teleost. Its ragged edge wasn't standard issue. Teleost's heart sunk. With his longsword still in hand, he turned and lunged to attack the man rather than follow his friends.
"Go!"
Teleost roared without looking at them.
"Save time!"
"But," Brusite said.
"Follow a simple direction, won't you?"
Teleost yelled despite the pain.
"Dumb oaf."
He did not hear another protest from his friend. M8 smiled at Teleost's trembling sword arm. Teleost put on a brave face, unwilling to let the bastard see his fear. When he heard Brusite run with Tome, that was all he needed, to know they would find safety at least. Teleost and the impostor exchanged blows. Using a few motions he learned from Anates and Brusite, Teleost dodged the fake soldier and drew blood in a few of the armor's weak spots. The hit to fake M8's knee went deep. Teleost couldn't maneuver well due to his failing body, but he was still standing.
"What have you done to us?"
Teleost meant for the question to come out as a roar, but it erupted as a moan. M8 grinned wolfishly. "Isn't it obvious?" Teleost grasped at his stomach with his free hand, but doubled over, unable to remain erect any longer. He slashed at M8 once more, but his motion was sluggish, and the impostor deflected his blade easily. He tried and failed again. It was difficult even to get air into his lungs. Teleost continued trying to land a hit on the man, even though he knew M8 was toying with him, and even though Teleost knew he was dying. He detected death in his peripheries. Bodies went limp. Other alleged water inspectors meticulously brought their swords down to separate the heads from the other soldiers' bodies. Teleost's darkening vision gave him the answer to the question he had asked. Few others struggled against them. Several fights danced around hundreds of corpses. But he couldn't think about it. He just needed to buy Brusite enough time to escape with the kid and find the others before the Vahantri found them. He saw them in the distance. They were far enough away that Teleost doubted the Vahantri would pursue them. But they had stopped running to watch, and Teleost wanted to scream at them. He wouldn't give them away. Teleost tried to lift his sword one last time, but couldn't raise it. The Vahantri member impersonating M8 ran him through with his jagged blade. He hadn't needed to do it. Teleost was heartbeats away from ascending into Ether's waiting room for his soul's eventual judgment.
Perhaps the man's actions are a mercy.
Teleost hadn't thought his stomach could feel any more pain than it had already been screaming at him, but when M8 withdrew the blade, it was so much worse. He internally depressurized, a feeling he couldn't have imagined, and the gaping hole in him welled with blood and agony. He fell to the ground, looking up at the sky through the tree leaves. Smoke filled the spaces between the greenery, blocking out the sun's light, the intense blues of Coserai, and the reds leaking over from Devor's atmosphere.
What a pity I couldn't see the sky once more.
He caught the edge of a sword in his vision before he closed his eyes, and waited for the end to come. Despite his body's panic over his impending death, he consoled himself, knowing that his friends were safe. That was enough. And then, that was it.